Hello and welcome to another Escape from Tarkov video. Today we're going to be talking about the gun I like to call the new Mosin. Now the M700 has been in the game for a long time, but with the nerfs to the Mosin, it's just became so much more viable. Now there's a lot of benefits and downsides to this weapon in comparison to the Mosin, but one of the big benefits is the cost. Now that Mosins have been nerfed into the ground where retail price is concerned, getting the M700 for nearly 36,000 off the flea market is a ridiculously good price for something which, comparatively, has the same kill potential as a Mosin. Now the reason it's so cheap is because they do tend to spawn very frequently on player scavs, so the player scav will just, load in, get out, it's a free gun that's got found and raid status. It's one of the reasons they're found so frequently. And I think it's just a fantastic weapon when you consider the fact that you can get these with a magazine of 10 to 20 rounds. That's the Mosin can only do that with the Archangel stock, and that's a very expensive way to modify your Mosin. Now there is some in-depth modifications you can do with the M700. You can change the body stock, you can change all sorts of things on it. But I just like the base weapon. It comes ready to kill in the package, and you can stick a small laser designator on the bottom if you want. But I think it's a very good gun for the price. I was using it during this video to take out Gluhar. Well, I don't take out Gluhar, but I take out all of his guards, and I end up doing quite a decent job at it. It's not too bad, to be fair, taking him out from a distance with an M700, and when you consider how much the gun costs, 36,000 rubles, it's not a bad price for a gun that's capable of, going through the armour of Scav boss guards. It also is probably one of the best sound guns in the game. I might be biased, but just listen to it. Now I know when I'm on a PMC and I hear that cracking off, I think, oh god, there's a player scav that's got nothing to lose with an M700. With M80 rounds, you know what I mean? It strikes fear into the heart of me when I'm running around on the map and I hear that weapon. So I can't imagine what it does for people who use that to their advantage. Now one of the selling points of the Mosin is the fact that you can get a scope on it relatively cheap and relatively early on. But the same can be done for the M700 if you have reasonable trader levels or access to the flea market. With the mounts on the left and the right, you can mount some really good scopes on it, especially the 300mm 30mm scope mount. That mounts, in my opinion, one of the best sights in the game, which is the EOTech Voodoo, which has the variable zoom on it. I think that's a fantastic sight. But if you wanted to go with an Alcan or a Hammer or something a bit more familiar, you could go with a Weaver base on the left, which will let you even put reflex scopes and sights on it. And on screen now is what they look like in game. If you were, if you find them in raid or you want to look for them on the flea market, that's what their little icon looks like. But you can pick up these mounts for between 2,000 to 7,000 rubles, depending on whether you can get it from the vendor or you have to buy it from the flea market. And to, put a scope on a sniper, that's really cheap in comparison. But that brings me on to my next point, which is ammunition. Now, one of the best selling points of the Mosin is the fact that the ammo is good quality and relatively cheap. But with the recent nerfs to LPS GZH, you're actually looking at LPS GZH being way more expensive than M80, and the performance isn't as good with 42 pen to 41. So the LPS GZH is better. It has one more performance and one more damage at 81 damage to 80. But when you look at the two side by side comparison, the M80 for the price of it is far cheaper and far more effective compared to the LPS GZH, which is why I think the nerf was a bit heavy handed. Now this is where the Mosin tends to pull away in terms of ammunition. So this is 7N1 versus M62, and the 7N1 round is 400 rubles cheaper, and it has 45 pen to 54, so this M62 has better penetration. Arguably costs a lot more though, but the 7N1 takes away in damage with 86, which is capable of one tap and chest armors, whereas the M62 at 79 I don't believe has that capacity. And another problem with the M62 is it's a tracer round. So if you're doing long shots, that's great because you can see how low you are, but they also know where you're shooting from, so it's a trade-off and you've got to be careful of that if you're using the M62 round. And lastly we have the well, best 2 penetrating rounds in the game, but they're probably overkill. The SMB is just so easily found in raid that it's 450 rubles, but the M61 is 1500 rubles. The penetration, the SMB is actually better because you want to do less pen when you do over 60, because generally the more pen you do, the less damage you do, as shown by this SMB round doing 75 damage compared to the 70 of the M61. Now M61 is still a good round. You will one-tap Altons and things like that with the M61 helmet, the M61 round. But in comparison to the SMB for the price per performance, it just isn't there, you know what I mean? The SMB is doing 5 points of more damage. But what you've got to think of is, with the Mosin being nearly 50-60,000 rubles, and the M700 being in the region of 36,000 rubles, how much more are you willing to spend on ammunition? Because if you're willing to go for the M62s and that helps you with the tracer rounds, then effectively you're getting more money, you're getting more, you know, performance for your money really when it comes down to the weapons and the platforms they use. But that's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to showcase a weapon which I think is a really good weapon, especially for new players or those who use the Mosin as a low risk, high reward weapon because they don't want that high stakes gameplay, and I don't blame them. You know, a lot of people get mad at people who run Mosins and not the meta M4. No, you run what you want to run. If you want to run a meta M4, you run a meta M4. If you want to run a bolt action sniper rifle, you run that bolt action sniper rifle. And I think the nerf to the Mosins, it really damaged that freedom of play. Now the Mosin isn't terrible by any means, but it has made a certain playstyle less viable. And I think the M700 could fill that gap. So if you love the Mosin and it was your go-to weapon, try out the M700. It might fill that gap for you when, you know, they're fixing these issues. And that's going to be it for me. Tell me down in the comments what you think of the M700. I personally love the weapon, and I hope this video helps you, and I'll see you next time.